Good morning. It's 11 a.m. And I would like to call this meeting of the CMAQ, CRP, and TAPL Project Selection Committee to order. Just as a reminder to committee members, please use your microphone when speaking so that audience members, both in person and online, can hear us. And for those joining us via Zoom today, please remember to keep yourself muted during the meeting unless called upon. Can the committee members please introduce themselves for the purpose of roll? I'll start. My name is Doug Ferguson with CMAP. Mark?
Mark Pitstick, RTA, representing Transit.
John Paul Dupla, FHWA.
Tom Rickert from Kane County, representing the counties.
Brent Davis with CDOT. Chris Schmidt, representing IDOT Central Office.
All right, thank you. Don't seeing Mayor Brady online. Is any staff member seeing him online? Okay. Mayor Brady had indicated he wished to participate remotely, but since he's not online, we'll hold off on that. If he joins us, maybe we can add him in at a later time. Moving on to 2.0, there are no agenda changes, but I do have one announcement. This is Mark Pitstick's last Project Selection Committee meeting as he's about to retire from the RTA. Mark has served as the transit representative on this committee. I was able to figure out 25 years. Does that sound about right? Oh, maybe 27? Okay. It was 2001, the first time I could find you listed in the meeting agreements. We didn't even have minutes then, so there wasn't an indication of who was in attendance. So, what? Yep, that was at Katz. And I started in January of 2002. So like I knew at least at that point in time he was on the committee. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit odd not having you here since my entire participation with this committee has involved you. And I would like to note one of the things I learned quickly as a staff member was to always double check what we were submitting for committee participation, mainly because I knew Mark was going to read the entirety of it and would probably find the errors, so for that, I'm always eternally grateful. But I don't know, I would like to join me in thanking Mark for your service on this committee over those years. And with that, do you want to say anything? You don't need to.
I can say something. Well, I mean, I've really enjoyed working on this committee. This has been my favorite by far. It's been quite an honor, but also I took it seriously. And I, like you said, I prepared for the meetings. I was always reviewing everything. I talked to people ahead of time. There were some issues. I had to represent all the transit agencies, not just RTA. So it was important. And proud of the projects we've accomplished and the changes and improvements we've made over the years. And I think we have a good process now. And I know that'll change as needs change, but I think but on top of it, I thank staff for working diligently and preparing the programs for us. And we're not picking individual projects. We're just kind of supporting the staff development of the program, and I think that's been great. So thank you.
Well, thank you again, and I hope you enjoy your retirement. All right. Moving on to 3.0, approval of the minute.
Doug, real quick, I just want to note Chad Riddle, non-voting members online, so just hi all. And I've been around as long as Mark. Bye.
Thank you, Chad. So we have before us the minutes from our March 26th meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
Pitstick motions to approve.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second? Thanks, Tom. All right. Are there any changes or comments to the minutes as presented? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Minutes pass. Moving on to 4.0 program monitoring. So included in your materials are the programming status sheets for the 3 different programs. These are just for informational purposes, but are there any questions or comments on those? All right, moving on to 4.0, the CMAQ programming summary obligation goal. As of May 6th, the region has obligated just under 119 million in federal fiscal year 26, which means that the region is well on our way of exceeding the annual apportionment and being actually able to spend down on some of the unobligated balance that is built up over the last 5 years. Are there any questions about the report? Okay. We'll move on to 5.0 project changes. John Hasma is going to lead us through the project change requests.
Good morning. There are just 2 project change requests up for consideration today. The first request is the Bellwood Metro Station and Pace Bus access improvements, which has CMAQ funding for engineering 2 and construction. Both of those phases are programmed in 2026. The project is requesting a transfer of all of its engineering 2 CMAQ funding in the amount of $11,685,000 to construction and an increase for construction engineering by $25,601 to account for updates in design and construction engineering estimates. Since the request did include a cost increase, we went back and re-ranked the project among access to transit projects included in the 2024 to 2028 program, and it remained the first ranked project out of 2 selected in that category. As such, staff's recommending approval of the requested transfer and cost increase for that project. And then the second request up for consideration is the Harvard Access to Transit project. You might recall that this was approved for a schedule advancement at the last meeting to bring engineering 2 from 2029 to 2028. And then it also has CMAQ funding in construction and construction engineering in 2029. It's now back here looking for a schedule advancement to move that engineering 2 funding again from now 28, which got moved to last meeting, to 27, and then also moving construction up from 29 to 28. So staff's recommending approval of that requested schedule advancement, and those are the 2 project changes we received that are up for consideration.
Great, thank you, John. Do I have a motion for approval?
Rickard motions to approve.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. So with that, are there any questions on the proposed changes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the changes pass. Okay, so Mayor Brady has been able to join us online. He has requested under the Open Meetings Act to participate remotely on the committee. I do need a motion to allow, and a second to allow him to participate. Do I have a motion to allow Mayor Brady to? Thank you, Grant. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Welcome, Mayor Brady. We're going to move on to 6.0. As we prepare for the upcoming call for projects, staff is going to be recommending and seeking guidance on some changes to the selection methodology. Building on our safety discussion from the last meeting, we have Allison Dressman here to walk us through some proposed modifications to the highway safety evaluation and scoring that's part of the transportation impact criteria. So with that, I believe Vicky's going to lead in a little bit. Sorry, Vicky.
Just a few quick words to tie today's presentation back to the last meeting. Yes, I'm Vicki Barrett. I am the program lead for Safe Systems here at CMAP. And at the last meeting, I presented the findings from our Safe Travel for All regional safety plan, including things like high injury networks and the results of systemic analyses that we did for each of the county plans. And I'm really excited that Allison is here today to present some recommended changes to the CMAQ scoring that are informed by these plans. And we're excited to put these tools into action in helping us understand not only where injury has already occurred, but where we can prevent injury from occurring in the future. And so you'll hear words like high injury networks, and you'll also hear things like risk factors. And this is all the types of considerations that are involved with what we're calling the safe system approach. This is an adopted approach by the U.S. Department of Transportation that really asks us to consider the holistic impacts of projects from a safety perspective. And so this is kind of a teaser of what we hope to do more of in the future, but I'll hand it over to Allison. So thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Vicki. Good morning, everyone. I know I just spoke to many of you, so I promise it won't be exactly repetitive, the same thing that I just presented on, but the beginning will be a little familiar. So my name is Allison Dressman. I'm a planner here at CMAP, primarily in our Safe Systems program. And today I'm happy to speak with you about some of our early efforts to align CMAP programming with a safe system approach, as Vicki mentioned. And today I'll be talking about one small tweak to the CMAQ evaluation method for the upcoming call for projects. So before we jump into the proposed methodology, just quickly revisit the last meeting that where Vicki spoke about our Safe Travel for All program and some of the items that she walked through. So in that meeting, we learned more about the safe system approach. We also learned about CMAP's FY23 Safe Streets for All Award that led to the creation of 6 county safety action plans, and main takeaways from those plans, including data findings, new data tools, recommended countermeasures, and themes across all 6 of the plans. Here they are, just to jog your memory. And go to the next slide. So at the last meeting, Vicki shared the county SAP results and how each county prioritized locations in need of safety improvements. And one of the main tools that was developed through these plans were these high injury networks, or HINs or HINs, lots of different names. I'm showing this slide again just to re-ground us all in a shared understanding of what those HINs represent. They identify the corridors where severe crashes have happened most frequently over the last 5 years. So this is very much a reactive approach, looking backward at where the data tells us the biggest, most frequent conflicts have occurred. And because each county plan developed the HINs a little differently, tailored to their individual context and conditions and priorities, the methods aren't exactly the same across the SAPs, and they really stand on their own for each county. Each county has one, and they're all unique to those areas. So that really influences how we're able to use them within our scoring framework. The other tool that was developed through these efforts is the county level systemic analyses. Systemic analyses adjust the lens just a little bit, and instead of looking only at where crashes already happened, they look at the roadway features and context to identify common risk factors most associated with those severe crashes. So compared to the HINs, these highlight locations that have risk factors, even if they don't meet the HIN threshold set by the SAP. And like the HINs as well, each county plan tailored its methodology for creating these to specific conditions and priorities. So again, there's a lot of variation in how the analyses were developed and how they can be used. So as we talked about in our last meeting, one of our goals is to make sure the work CMAP is doing and the work of this committee is aligned with the county SAPs and with the broader safety framework, regional safety framework that we are building out right now. So those plans include a lot of thoughtful local analysis. And we really want to make sure that we're carrying that work forward in a meaningful and practical way. So today I'm going to walk through the change to the CMAQ evaluation methodology that I teased earlier. And this key change relates to the way that safety is evaluated for the transportation impact criteria for highway projects. So CMAQ projects fall into several different categories, and the evaluation methods vary depending on which category it falls into. The change that I'm going to discuss today will only affect the projects bolded here, the ones categorized as bottleneck elimination, intersection improvement, and signal interconnect. Currently, projects scored with the road projects and safety benefits worksheet can earn up to 5 points for safety. That score right now is based on the IDOT Safer Roads Index, or SRI, which places roads into peer groups and assigns them to one of 5 tiers based on the overrepresentation of crashes in each group. Projects receive a safety score using the highest Safer Roads Index tier along the project limits. If a project includes potential safety countermeasures, it can receive between 1 and 5 points, and it won't receive a 0. However, this approach relies heavily on crash history and conventional framework that doesn't fully reflect the opportunities to reduce kinetic energy in our roadway network and minimize risk for all road users. While the conventional approach is familiar to us, it is ultimately misaligned with the safe system approach. So the change staff is proposing today focuses specifically on how the safety score is determined. All other metrics in the CMAQ evaluation methodology and their weights stay the same under this proposed change. And that change is that rather than relying on the IDOT Safer Road Index score, we're recommending that the safety criterion be based on the 2 elements from the county SAPs that we talked about earlier, the HINs and the systemic risk analyses. With this approach, 25% of the score will be determined by the project's location being on an HIN or not, and the other 75% for the location having systemic risk factors identified in the relevant county plan, safety action plan. This updated need would only apply to the safety criterion of the transportation impact score. The safety need would be scaled to the 0 to 5 points seen in this table. Quickly, I'm going to walk you through an example of how this would work. This is just an example project. It's an intersection improvement project that previously would have scored a 2 for safety due to it having a medium Safer Road Index score. Under the new scoring method, it would not receive points for being on the HIN because in this example, it wasn't on the HIN. But it does present high-risk characteristics identified in the county SAP in which it's located, especially for VRUs, like having more than 4 legs, being near transit, and having speeds higher than 25 miles per hour. And the project is implementing intersection improvements that will address these risk factors, like speed management, tightening curb radii, and adding protected bike lanes. Because the location has those risk factors and is addressing them in the project scope, it would receive 75 points for systemic risk. And scaled, that would land the project on receiving 3 out of the 5 available safety points. As in the current methodology, those safety points are then combined with the other metrics to determine the project's final evaluation score. This demonstrates how a project can earn points for proactive safety measures instead of relying on reported crashes in the location. So why are we proposing this change? So this is just the first step. This is a small tweak. As part of CMAP's Safe System program, we are gearing up to make further long-term changes. For now, this adjustment offers a closer alignment with the Safe System approach. It also offers an opportunity to operationalize resources developed in the safety action plans, which reflect that more complete local context and priorities. It's important for us to implement the work that we've invested in. And then, of course, it offers us a move toward getting to our 2050 goal of 0 traffic fatalities. CMAP already has several ongoing and upcoming efforts also aimed at achieving these goals. And this slide, it highlights a few examples of that work. While broader changes are expected in the long term, these adjustments are intended now to provide more of a smooth transition to a more comprehensive safe system-based evaluation framework in the future. So that's all I have, and I'm happy to take questions now.
All right, thank you, Allison. Are there any questions on what's being proposed? Yeah, Chris.
Question and a comment. I think the first question will be pretty easy. It's still going to be 5 points, right? The score.
Well, so you're jumping the
I
gun a little bit.
Okay.
So we have 2 different pieces here. Like one is just the methodology for the evaluation.
Gotcha.
I was also going to propose, once we've discussed this, like
Yeah.
potentially increasing the amount of points for safety. So let's deal with like just the evaluation at this point in
Sure.
time, and then we can like, I know they're intertwined, but
Yeah.
like it
Gotcha.
makes it a little bit.
And I guess the
easier.
other comment is that I commend you on the idea of, as a planner, taking planned work that has been done and putting it towards project selection. That's got to be an exciting bit because sometimes that doesn't happen. So
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that. That work is being seen and utilized. So
Any other concerns, comments?
I just had two questions. Well, maybe just one. What were the three areas that would be covered? You said bottleneck,
Mhm.
interconnects, and what was the third one?
And intersection improvement.
Oh, intersection. I
Mhm.
should have realized that.
That's okay.
Yeah, so this would only apply to the evaluation of what we call the highway transportation impact criteria. And so there was a safety score already there, but we wanted to make it a little bit more robust and to follow along. And we also like to keep where applicable, like CMAQ and STP kind of in the same vein. So we're not doing different types of evaluation types. Like, I mean, yeah. So this kind of aligns with what was previously discussed at the STP.
And I was here for that. I thought Grant and Tara did a great job asking some of the concerning points relative to the potential impacts and that kind of stuff. Especially like what like lighting. They brought up lighting and that coverage. So I thought there was good discussion. I think this is heading in the right direction, obviously. So.
Yeah, if we could go to the next slide, and Allison, stay up there just in case, like, but so you can see like right now, so the transportation impact criteria for highway projects, there's 15 points for liability, 5 for safety, and then 10 for what we call the corridor transit improvement. I'm proposing that we shift 5 points from corridor transit improvement over to safety. So just as a refresher, the corridor and transit improvement. So a project would get 10 points if it was part of an overall corridor project, or if it involved, or it would receive 5 points if it was part of a corridor project, and then it would receive another 5 points if it involved a transit element as part of the overall project. What I'm proposing now is that it's either or, like you could get 5 points for corridor or transit, but you wouldn't get 10 points if you're doing both, if that makes sense. And increasing safety. This is going back a long time when we were first proposing these. It was there was a concern from the old RTOC committee that CMAQ was not a safety program and we shouldn't be thing. But I would argue that what we're trying to do with the transportation impact criteria is find other additional benefits beyond just the emissions benefits. And I think safety has risen over this time to be something that we as a region want to focus more on. And so I think we should follow suit and provide more points for projects that are also addressing safety as part of their overall project. Does this sound agreeable to folks? Just as kind of a logistics. So in August, at our August meeting, any changes that we're proposing, we will document those all in a memo and ask for your vote. But it's helpful to know, like, if something's a non-starter or if we need to come back and revise it. That's why I'm asking for your opinions now. So when we get to August, it's more perfunctory than like less discussion and more just a collection, and everybody agrees that these are how we're going to evaluate and score the projects. So
How something gets sent once again on that.
yeah. In the application materials, a project, if they check that the highway project was part of an overall corridor project, they would receive. Yeah, like, yeah. Well, if it was a corridor, like some of the signal interconnects are corridor projects. So that project would receive 5 points. And then we would also ask, is there a transit element part of it? The project, like, were they providing TSP as part of the overall like signal interconnect, or were they doing something, a jump lane, or something along a physical improvement, not just well, this project touches transit. That's not the point. It was that they were doing something that would benefit transit. They would receive an additional, a potential 5 points additional in addition to the corridor. So what I'm saying now is that a project would receive 5 points if it was either part of a corridor or if it involved a transit, but it wouldn't get 10 points as part of that.
Well, then safety improvements do have, I mean, in theory, like safety improvements do have emission reduction with them because if you have less incidents out there, you have less congestion. And if you're making improvements for, let's just say, ped bike safety, I mean, they're like, it fits with what we've done in the past with where active transportation is a category that you can go after because it does have emission
Yeah.
benefits with that. So I think you're like reasoning, at least for like safety, is valid.
Oh, yeah. Like, we found, like, I mean, incident management, like, or incidents, it's always hard to gauge, like, I mean, if it's not an incident specific, but like, yeah, if we're addressing safety and there are less crashes, that means that reliability is going to potentially increase and congestion could potentially go down, especially in high injury network type of areas.
Rickard, again, I don't see any concerns here on my part, but I will check with the other counties, just make
Okay.
sure that they don't have any concerns. And
I'm trying to find the call for project scoring completely. So I'm at the risk of sounding like an idiot, more so than normal. This is still 70% then is still emissions reduction, right?
Well, right now, it's 50%. Now that could change with other discussions that we're going to have later on in the summer that we haven't gotten to
Okay,
yet.
so
but
50 and 30.
30, and then there was 20 for equity, and that's
Equity, okay,
where we're
okay.
going to probably have
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
further discussions in July.
As long as is at a minimum 50% is going to what the federal definition of a CMAQ project is, I probably have no issue with this.
And
Same
it doesn't change the fact that a project still has to have emissions to be eligible.
Sure,
Like, so it doesn't matter how they score in all the other areas. If there's no expected emissions benefit, it's not eligible for funds.
Yeah, I think there's having emissions reduction and then picking projects that have the most emissions reduction. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
And understand that this is just going to be like, so staff is going to use the scoring and ranking to develop a proposed program of projects. This committee can always say, we think that you may have missed the mark here or something along those lines and can adjust accordingly. And I understand that's hard when staff has made a proposal, but that's still an option that, like, if you don't think that emissions is or the core purpose is not being met with our scoring, we can still make adjustments.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm not sure how often that's happened, at least in my tenure, but.
It's very few times has it happened, but I mean.
And I think that was projects that maybe scored well that we knew from past experience just did not do what they say they were going to do, but ended up scoring well in this matrix.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. I don't want to call anybody out, but I can remember one, for example. But no, I think this is a great idea. I think your point of safety being a potential congestion point on a roadway is duly noted. So I have no issue from the IDOT standpoint.
Great. Well, thank you, Allison.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the direct emission reduction transportation impact criteria. So I'm going to like try to provide a little bit of an overview of what has been done in the past, and specifically in the last round that is bringing this to the forefront again. So next slide, please. So right now, as the approved criteria, so for those projects that are direct emission reduction, so these are fuel and vehicle technology types of projects that have included electric buses, switcher locomotive projects that we've done. We've done some alternative fuel projects in the past in this area. So for the TIC, we looked at, they could receive a potential of up to 15 points for benefit to sensitive populations. This was based upon US EPA's mapping, looking at the concentration of particulate matter to sensitive populations. And so those are populations that were like minority, low income, over 65 and under 5. So it was looking at those types of populations in where the concentrations of particulate matter are. Projects could also receive 5 additional points if they were improving public fleets. In the last round, the mapping that we used for the benefits of sensitive populations disappeared after we started the call for projects. And US EPA has not replace that with something of a similar vein. So in the last round, we did not do the transportation impact criteria for direct emissions reduction projects. And that's because we couldn't score for the benefits of sensitive populations. And we scored them similar to how we do other projects where we just look at the emissions benefit as the only scoring metric, in addition to the equity. I have not been able to come up with a solution to replace the benefits of, so I'm kind of opening the floor up for potential ideas. One that I'll throw out there initially is we just treat direct emissions reduction projects just like the other category projects, where we just look at the emissions and then whatever the equity component is on the side. So with that, I'm looking for to see if anybody has any ideas on this. Let's just say it's a struggle trying to come up with something that would replace it in a similar vein.
Is the DCO map for underserved areas something you guys have looked at?
Say that again.
Department of Economic Commerce and Opportunity, I think, has got a map that they use. There was basically, I think part of it came out of the CEJA legislation.
Okay.
So they have a map that they maintain, and I think you can get the shapefile online. I don't think it is as well defined as all the categories that you spoke about, but it has definitions on there that get you roughly to that population based on several different factors. I don't know if it's as clean and has the same level of weight to different categories versus, what weight you give to minority versus low income or, poverty. Talks about different programs that people are signed up for and things like that. So that would be a suggestion.
Okay.
I think EPA, the Illinois EPA had one also that they were using for the Volkswagen money, but I would caution on saying that I would look into that because I think that was specific to that program, but they also had created 3 zones. But it wouldn't be as granular because it wouldn't, I think it put Chicago all in the same zone. So I wouldn't look at that one at all now that. Yeah, I think it made like zone 1 is basically all of Chicago and all of East St. Louis as priority areas.
Oh, okay.
So I forget that I said that. So, but that one, it gets a little more granular and that might be an area. I mean, you can kind of see.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to serve the purpose, but it's a start.
Yeah, no, we can take a look at that.
Is that something that developing for the Chicagoland region is something that staff has interest in doing as a sort of a standalone effort?
What do you mean?
To create that, to recreate a map, maybe that's more updated and that would have those concerns? I would think as an MPO, I mean, I'm not saying you guys haven't dabbled in the idea of it, but it seems like something that interesting that you would, as an MPO, be
Well,
find value in.
I will, like, we were planning on at our July meeting, bringing up our inclusive growth scoring.
Okay.
And talking about that in a little bit more detail, and how we move forward with that. I will say that there are a lot of different efforts internally that we're trying to um, like reframe what we do in that context. So it's something we're looking to do, but we don't have anything, and we don't want to bring something that's half-baked.
Oh, most
Like,
definitely not. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so that's why we're hesitant,
Okay.
at least in replacing what we're currently doing, but we'll talk about that more
Okay.
but for the purposes of this, I'll take a look at the map that you.
I can send
referred
you the
to.
link too.
Yeah, that would be great. Are there any other comments or suggestions or ideas that we can consider? I know, normally I would prefer to bring something. We spent some time looking, couldn't find something that I felt comfortable bringing to you, but we'll keep looking. But it may be that we want to suggest, like, treating it like we did in the last round, where we're only looking at emissions. Now, I will say the direct emissions reduction projects, we evaluate them for both PM 2.5 and NOx emissions. We do for VOC as well because we're required, but the scoring is based upon the NOx and the PM 2.5. So there are two different emissions that are evaluated.
Got another dumb question. That this score is not given to, well, it says improves public fleets. So is like a bus replacement scored under this category, or is it transit improvement?
So it depends. So if they are proposing a alternative fuel vehicle as the
As
replacement,
opposed to more clean diesel?
right. So something, yeah,
I'm with you now.
that would be evaluated. If they are just talking about purchasing buses for like expanded and it's just a typical standard diesel bus that they currently purchase now, that would not be
That makes
handled under that. It would be handled under new service.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
And I will say, like, the improved public fleets, the 5 points, that was added when we were doing a lot of diesel switcher locomotive projects that we were working with the railroad companies. I'm not saying that there's not going to be any like railroad projects in the future, but I don't think that there's going to be the same sort of demand that we had previously.
10 years.
Sure. I don't know the exact number of years, but it's been several cycles. And that's been because of Buy America waivers. But I do know that there's a lot of companies out there that are getting better at being able to provide those alternative technologies and still meet the Buy America waivers, as that's something that they've had to focus on. Is there any correlation on the Yeah, so that was, and that was looking at the, when we were looking at the PM concentrations, because there was a direct like correlation between like asthma rates and heart disease with extreme PM. So that's why we were looking at the sensitive populations in a conjuncture with the PM concentrations. Mainly you would see like the PM concentrations would be centered around intermodal facilities, highways, and those areas around there tend to be areas that like low income individuals get pushed into, and they have less likely ability to move away from those areas. And so that's why we were focusing on those. All right. Well, If anything comes to mind, please reach out. But hopefully we can take a look at some other alternatives and come back with a proposal. Moving on to 7.0, other business. Is there any other business that committee members wish to bring forward? Yes, Chris.
Small announcement. I've spoken before in this area of the agenda about FTA transfers. And we talked about how there's somewhat of a hidden schedule at IDOT that we're now making a little more public. I guess I just use this forum right now to say that, we're getting to the end of where IDOT feels comfortable processing FTA transfers. Obviously, we have to adhere to, the federal fiscal year and things of that nature, but redistribution and things like that start to become fuzzy, and there's a lot of shell games that occur at different areas in IDOT. I can't speak to that too much, but if you have an FTA transfer that you were thinking about processing for this federal fiscal year, I think sooner rather than later getting that information to me would behoove the project moving forward in a timely fashion.
Great. That's a good reminder for folks. Any other? Yeah, Mark.
Doug, yeah, just to follow up on from before, I had some time to reflect and have some additional comments. You mentioned 2001, but I joined the RTA in 1999. And the first week I was told that one of my responsibilities was to represent RTA and in some cases all the transit agencies on all the committees at CATS at the time. And it took me a while to figure out all that entailed. And so at the beginning, representing all of transit agencies was not just the CMAQ committee, but there was at the time was a regional transportation plan committee that was very important. And also the tier 2 consultation team, which still exists. Representing RTA only, I was an alternate or second alternate on the policy committee, and I was called to duty several times. I was the primary representative for the work program committee, and then later the transportation committee for a number of years. Primary representative for the unified work program committee until recently, and various technology committees that has been renamed several times over the years.
It's now T-Talk.
T-Talk, yeah, now T-Talk, but it had other names before that. So let's call that 6 committees, and that was 27 years, and I did some estimates recently. And how many meetings would you think that would be? Tom, what do you think? Order of magnitude. About 3,000 meetings over that period of time, because there was a lot of them, and almost all those until COVID were in-person meetings. So yeah, so I did my time. So I rest. At the next meeting and subsequent meetings, RTA and NETA and other transit agencies will be represented by Peter Kirsten, who is our division manager of regional planning. And the alternate will be Heather Mullins, who you know from other committees. So you can look forward to that.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Moving on to 8.0, public comment. Is there anybody from the audience or online that wishes to address the committee today? All right. I'm not seeing any hands raised. All right. No public comment. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 16th. And with that, seeing as there's no other business before the committee, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
That's got to be Mark, right?
Yep, Mark. Do I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
11:44. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.